And one part of that is the participation of Dr. Gustaf Winroth, who I will welcome up to the stage. You are now the Research Program Officer for Advanced Manufacturing Systems and Biotechnologies at the Directorate for Key Enabling Technologies. PhD in Physics from England, and also then a postdoc at the Research Institute IMEC in Belgium. Is that so? Yes? Welcome, Dr. Winroth, to present. Dr. Winroth will present in English, but if you have any questions afterwards in Swedish, you can be able to post them in Swedish as well, and we will translate them. Yeah. Okay. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction, Judith. And I would also like to thank Catherine and VINNOVA for the invitation to participate today. I'm very excited to be able to present our current work program that we published now mid of October. It runs for 2 years, but I'm going to focus a bit more on the 2016 calls that are in progress now and will soon also be ending. Before I start talking about the special particularities of this work program, I would like to put it in a bit of a policy context as well, the political aspects as well, because these are really important to be able to understand what needs to come into proposal, why the work program in research and innovation looks like the way it does. The most fundamental part is the priorities from the College of the Commission. The President of the Commission, President Juncker, has 10 priorities. 5 of these are particularly interesting for research. On top of that, we have the strategic priorities of Commissioner Moedas, who is the Commissioner for Research and Innovation. These priorities mirrors everything that we do in the work program as well. This is especially towards the impact targets that I will talk a bit later on. In terms of impact, we will look at boosting jobs, growth, investment, improving the internal market, and strengthening the industry, the industrial capacity. We also look into creating a digital single market, the energy union, and that is directly linked back to research and innovation. And I would like to put up a new focus area as well that we have in the work program is the circular economy, and especially Industry 2020 in the circular economy, because it really puts the spot on the nanomaterials, biotechnology and production part of the work program that I'm going to present. We've heard a bit of the key elements of Horizon 2020 from Judith already. I'm just going to repeat a bit and then place where this NMB-P part comes in. The key elements is that it's a single program for all research and innovation activities within Horizon 2020. They're based on 3 pillars: the societal challenges, leadership in industry, and excellence or scientific excellence. We do not try to tell you in the work program exactly how a proposal should look like, but we're focusing more on the impact levels. We have certain targets for impact, and then we expect in the proposal that those type of impacts are addressed, and it's convincingly enough how to achieve those impacts. The approach is a bit strategic. We have a 2-year work program now, 2016-17. That means that the calls also for 2017 are already published, although they're not open, but you can read them. And then we have these focus areas, as I will talk about, and now a bit more on the circular economy. And then we try to do simplification. There will also be a second round of simplification as we go along into the midterm of Horizon 2020, because we already passed 2014 and 2015. We saw before with Judith already these three pillars. The indicative budget for the whole course of the 7 years of launching calls of Horizon 2020 is about 75 billion euros. The industrial leadership part during this time is a bit more than 15 billion euros. And that also includes other type of activities that are on top of these priorities. The NMB-P part you find under the leadership in enabling and industrial technologies. In industrial leadership, we also have access to risk finance and SME innovation as well as extra tools. And I promised also Katrin that I will take one slide on the SME instrument as well. The NMB-P part in the work program is actually a bit limited inside this industrial leadership. We have 4 parts. It's nanotechnologies, advanced materials, biotechnology, which is one of the, let's say, newer parts in the part that before was only nanomaterials and production. And then we have the advanced manufacturing and processing. And again, I would like to emphasize these other parts where we try to improve the industrial participation in European research. The guiding principles that we look for is to engage industry, to make them aware of what we want to try to do, and also make partnerships such that what we create is also relevant for industry. We support 4 out of the 6 key enabling technologies that has been identified by the Commission. Those include the ones that actually creates the NMB-P, so nanotechnologies, materials, biotechnology, and processing or production. I'm going to talk a bit about the technology readiness levels. This is something you will see in all calls. And this is the expectancies of the readiness levels of the technology, how mature is the technology. And usually it spans between 3 going up to 7. Beyond 7, we have other type of instruments outside Horizon 2020 that could further take your innovation activities. Overall, we have 3.8 billion indicatively to distribute under this part of the framework program. And we focus on the manufacturing capabilities in Europe. What we furthermore try to do is we try to leverage further investment from in the industry, but also from our public partners or from the member states. We have, for instance, the metrology program, which is a public-public partnership. And then we have private public partnerships through contractual public-private partnerships and joint technology initiatives, JTIs. And there we expect a certain leverage factor, meaning how much will we gain, how much activities, how much money will be put on top of the projects that we do. And these we have through, for instance, the contractual PPPs, which is Spire, EB, and FOF, for instance, but also green cars. We try to estimate how much the industrial engagement afterwards will be through these projects. So this is why it's important also to make the program relevant for industry. We have business associations where we contact industry to work together with them on what are their needs and so forth. Then we have some more instruments for loans, funding for innovation. We have the European Fund for Strategic Investments, which is also a type of risk finance instrument. So these are all tools that we try to do beyond Horizon 2020 in order to increase the added value. The public-private partnerships are quite a few. I'm not going to talk about all of them today. In NMB-P, we're mainly focusing on the contractual PPPs, factors of the future, energy efficient buildings, and sustainable process industry, or Spire. But I would like to highlight that there is also more of these contractual PPPs coming up. Some of them are very new, some of them have been around for a while. Also, we have these institutional PPPs, which is these joint technology initiatives. I'm not going to spend any time here today, but there are more events, there are more information to gather on the internet as well about what they do and what type of calls they have and opportunities for proposals. These are quite interesting, but they're also quite specialized, and depending on what you're looking for, that could be also an option. I talked about the technology readiness levels. It basically spans from a scale between 1 and 9, 1 being very basic principle research, so very bottom-up type of research. This is where the excellence pillar comes in. So this is a very frontier type of technology where you can submit your calls. That will be, for instance, for the future and emerging technologies, which I think VINNOVA will have in end of November, an event. And it goes up to a technology readiness level of 4, which is the technical validation in a laboratory environment. This is where we try to take off in the industry pillar and bring it up to demonstrators, both in a relevant environment and an operational environment. So depending on a bit the difference there, but we can come back to that. But basically the main part here is that we focus on end users, we focus on in industry, focus on someone who can build demonstrators in a relevant or an operational environment. So this is something that I would like to ask you to keep in mind afterwards when you also read the work program, because this is important. We published this 2-year work program on the 13th of October this year. And it includes quite a few parts. I would like to ask you to pay particular attention to also the introduction of the leadership in industrial technologies, because there it also gives you this policy context. And this is important because we're not just a funding agency. We write these work programs for a certain political goal. And that's why also the projects that we're looking for, the proposals that we're looking for, also has this type of impacts that lie together with the political goals of Europe, that also is included in the proposals. In the NMB-P part, in the pure NMB-P part, that includes the main NMB-P call, but also the energy efficient buildings part. So that's one of the contractual PPPs. In the cross-cutting part, which is a bit outside and it doesn't say leadership in enabling and industrial technologies, is the cross-cutting part, and you can find that also on the same place. I will show you where it includes the pilot, the factors of the future PPPs, and the Spire PPPs. And that lies there because it's also in this focus area, as I was talking about before, in the circular economy. The NMB-P and pilots, they are 2-stage. The new thing for the pilots is that it's gone from 1 stage to 2 stage, meaning that the first cutoff date is 8th of December, 2015. The contractual PPPs, the support actions and error nets and so forth, they are 1 stage, so they are full volume, let's say, proposals, and that cutoff date is the 21st of January next year. So please pay attention to the deadlines because that's quite important, and it's electronic submission and so forth. So there are no latecomers possible. Where to find it? I gave you the up on top. I gave you the link. When you click on it, you will find in two parts. Underneath the pillar of industrial leadership, which is where you will find the main NMB-P and EEB calls. And then you have to go all the way down to find the cross-cutting activities or the focus areas. And this is where you go in and look for the circular economy, and then you will find the pilots, factors of the future, and Spire as well. The budgets for this year in the calls, you can see here. This is, again, quite indicative. It depends on what then the overall budget will be. But it, again, gives you an idea of how many of these proposals will be funded. We have, in each topic, we have an indicative, let's say, amount that we suggest you to ask for, so that it gives you an idea. It doesn't prevent you to ask more or less. So, but if, let's say, if the average will be 5 million euros for FOF, that would allow you to have about 15 projects to be funded in total. So that gives you a bit of an idea of what size of funding is available. The types of actions are similar to what we had in the previous work program. We have research and innovation actions, we have innovation actions, we have coordination support actions, and then we have the aeronaut co-funds as well. I'm going to talk a bit about the difference between research and innovation actions and innovation actions. Research and innovation actions are usually at a slightly lower technology readiness level. It doesn't remove the need to have demonstrators at the end of the project, but it's slightly more focused on research, and it has overall 100% funding of the direct costs. The innovation actions, on the other hand, are a bit more targeted towards technologies that are a bit more mature. And then in order to engage the industry a bit more, and for them to also understand the importance of what is involved, for profit-making partners, it's a 70% funding for the direct costs. As similar as for the 2014-2015, overall in Horizon 2020, we have a 25% flat rate for the indirect costs. I promised Katrin to present a slide on the SME instrument and the fast track to innovation. I'm just going to mention them, that they exist. For instance, the SME instrument is bottom-up in particular areas. So it's 7% of the budget of leadership in industrial technologies. And then it's about 3 billion euros in societal challenges. Well, 3 billion in total, sorry. And phase one is just a quick study on the feasibility of a certain technology or a certain idea. And then there's a lump sum of 50,000 euros. Phase two is independent from phase one, and there it's really a proper proposal that goes into a competitive evaluation, and usually the grant ranges between 500,000 to 2.5 million euros. And then once you're out of phase two, there are also specific phase services, specific aids that you can make use of to further commercialize your innovations. There are 4 cutoffs every year for phases 1 and 2, and they're running all the time. So it's also to give you a bit easier access to these. So you don't have to really worry about any deadlines. There's just take in mind these cutoff dates. And then these fast track to innovation is also, again, very close to market innovation activities, where you have possibility to have a grant about 1 to 2 million euros. And there are in total 3 cutoffs in 2015 and 16 for this new pilot that we have. Good. I'm going to slowly move into the work program topics. I'm not going to spend too much here because Katrin promised to put a bit more exactly how the evaluation is being done during the process. But I'm going to, in the work program, in the call topics, they all have a specific challenge, a scope, and an expected impact. The specific challenge basically gives you the background, a bit of a policy context to the topic. The scope is describes what needs to be included in the proposal. It also gives you an expected technology readiness level that you should use as an indication of what type of maturity are we looking for. So that means also in the proposal, that needs to be very clear that you're targeting the correct technology readiness level when you're submitting a proposal. And there are itemized detailed requirements for each point that needs to be included in the proposal. And then I want to stress again the expected impact. The third section of each call topic is the expected impact. And here we have normally quantitative impact targets where you have to be convincing enough in your proposal to say this is what we will reach, this is how we will do it. A business case framework, so all of the proposals need to have a business case presented. And proposals, again, need to be convincing in the way they propose to reach these impact targets. And this is very important to put time on as well, not just the technical part. It's also to show on a more wider scale how you want to attain these impact targets. Katrin has a better slide than me on this. I just want to say in Annex H, so we have quite a few annexes in the work program. In Annex H, there's the full list on the criteria on how we evaluate it. We evaluate on 3 parts: excellence, impact, and implementation. Please read this annex. You will find it also in the same place as the rest of the work program. And it's important to remember that this is the way the experts then are evaluating the proposals. Again, impact is very important. It's prioritized. So if we have a proposal that has the same, 2 proposals that have the same points, it's the impact score that will come higher up in the ranking list. And in addition to that, in innovation actions, so the ones that are a bit more mature in technology, there we put a weight factor of 1.5 as well. Scoring, you can receive anything between 0 and 15. So you get 5 points per criteria, or you can win 5 points per criteria. And it goes from 0, which is insufficient, and basically that's when something is missing, if something is physically not there in the proposal. 3 is something that is very well addressed, and it's a good proposal. It's a good, let's say, if you receive a 3 in excellence, that means it's good excellence. The technology is there. It's very pertinent to the call. 5 would be where you have addressed everything, and any shortcomings are minor or not even there. So it's important when you submit a proposal and perhaps you score a 9, meaning perhaps you score 3 on each criteria, that would be below the threshold. The threshold is 12. And you need to score 4 in impact and in excellence, at least. And on overall, you need to score 12. If you receive a 9, so you're below thresholds, still, that's a good proposal. So that's something that you need to take at home as well, and to understand that this is not something that it did not make the cut, but it's still a good proposal and it has potential. So I talked a bit about the impact in the work program, and the impacts that we evaluate on are none other than in the topic descriptions. But again, please read also the, let's say, the higher level policy context in the introduction. And in most topics, you need a business case and exploitation strategies on how to industrialize your technology. And that needs to also include, for instance, things like IPR strategy and so forth. Experts, we have 5 experts usually for the research and innovation actions. They can see through if something is not realistic or credible. So per proposal, there are 5 experts, independent experts reading it. So these business cases, the impact needs to be very well justified. And it's always good if someone who did not write that section also reads it and is convinced him to be able to understand if this is indeed credible. We also have activities, and we push for these exploitation strategies to be developed during the course of the project. We ask the projects to renew their strategy, because perhaps halfway in, the strategy might have changed. The emphasis on something might have changed. So that needs to be updated as well. This is an exercise that is continuously throughout the project. And as I said, the impact criterion is always the first criterion to be used to separate proposals that have scored the same during the evaluation. So again, if you need to prioritize something, please prioritize the impact. Communication is coming more important. We are also pushed by this politically to have open science and open innovation, which is part of what Commissioner Moedas is trying to pull into the framework program. These are evaluated under the impact section as well. And you need to be able to demonstrate how you will promote the results, how you will promote your technology, and how you will address the audience, the public, and in which way and to whom. And I should say again, because that's something that we receive sometimes, the questions on the communication activities, but you can choose any type of mean to communicate this. So whatever you feel is the most effective way to communicate, that's the way you should choose. So I said about this in section 2.2, but that also goes for other type of dissemination and exploitation. So how to exploit your technology, how to bring it forward to a commercial base. You need to have, and this is very important because this is a condition, a technical condition that we, if we say if the proposal is admissible or not, and you need to have a plan for dissemination exploitation for the project's results. You need to have a plan inside the project, inside the proposal, otherwise we cannot evaluate it. And of course, this will be an indicative plan. Again, this is also something that we will use during the project's course to update and to renew to see how it works. And then for research and innovation actions, the proposals will also be judged on their potential of actually reaching a commercially independent or commercially stable base under the excellence criteria. So this is something that you need to look into in the template also under section 1.4. So please submit your proposals well ahead of time. There might be, for some reason, at the 5 minutes before the deadline, technical problems. Please make sure that you're not one of those who miss the deadline just with a couple of minutes. Respect the page limits. I think in the research and innovation actions, I think they're all 70 pages for the main core part of the proposal. What happens if you write more than 70 pages is that we just cut those pages out during the evaluation. So you're still admissible, but the proposal will be evaluated as if those excess pages did not exist. Again, read the work program documents. There are other cross-cutting documents as well that can give you an idea of how to address and how to frame your proposals. And as I said, please have someone to read your proposal, not just for quality of language, not just for the quality of everything, but it's also the coherence, and if your impact statements and your credibility in terms of how you frame your technology and your proposal, if that's okay or not. So that's really, I think, an added value type of process that you should consider. In Horizon 2020, we don't negotiate. In 7th Framework Program, there was some room where we could say, okay, I know you proposed this, but then we will frame it and perhaps we take away a work package because it's not relevant. It was a good proposal, but one of the work packages will have to go. So there was space also for the project participants to tune a bit the actual description of work or description of the action after the successful being successful during the evaluation. So we don't do that anymore. Whatever you write in the proposal is what contractually you will be bound to implement afterwards. And for the third or the fourth time, expected impact might be the decisive factor for that. So I'm going to very shortly now. I'm still good on time. I got 1 hour, so I'm going to take that time. But in any way, I'm going to very shortly go through just show you the topics that we have within the NMB-P part of leadership in enabling and industrial technologies, but also a couple of topics that are a bit outside, still in the focus area of circular economy, but a bit outside the NMB-P, but it could also be of interest to you. And you will also see it in the same part as you will see the factors of the future and the Spire. So for instance, in the circular economy topics that are in the focus area, but they're not directly related to NMB-P, you have a couple of calls, 2 research and innovation actions and 2 innovation actions to demonstrate different type of let's say eco-friendly initiatives that are relevant to this circular economy policy area that we have in the Commission. So please have a look at that, because that could be quite interesting as well if you're related to these type of technologies. The pilot lines, we have 2 pilot line calls. The pilot lines are both innovation actions, so they are very mature in terms of technology. It looks towards creating pilot lines. That's why they're called pilots. And they're again quite targeted towards what type of pilot line we're looking for. One is customized thermal electrical conductivity properties in materials, and the second one is also towards materials. It's for nanostructured surfaces by functionalization technologies. In Factories of the Future, we have 5 calls in the let's say the more manufacturing part, and then we have 2 that lies under ICT. In the first 1 to 4, 2 of them are research and innovation actions. So here there's a bit more emphasis on research, but then we have the other 2 which are more towards, they're more mature as innovation actions. The FOF5 is a coordination and support action to enhance the development of additive manufacturing technologies. And the ICT part actually are 4 topics, even though they're called FOF11 and 13. FOF11 targets digital automation, and FOF13 targets photonic laser-based production. And here you have a choice between a research and innovation action and an innovation action. So there depends a bit on what scope you want to target. In Spire, we have actually more than what you can see here. We have 2 CSAs, the coordination and support actions, 5 and 6. And then again, there are 2 innovation actions, there are 2 research and innovation actions. So here it still allows you to, whether you're targeting something that is more mature or less mature, that's something that you could try to funnel your proposal towards. There are more Spire-related topics, but they're outside both the NMB-P area and the focus area of circular economy, but I still highlight them, and they lie under the energy part of the work program. So I just want to mention that as well, that they are not Spire calls as such, but they're related to Spire. In energy efficient buildings, there are 4 topics. 1 is coordination support action, 2 are innovation actions, and then we have 1 research and innovation action. On top of that, there is again an energy call, so it doesn't lie under the circular economy. That is related to the contractual PPP of energy efficient buildings. So, as before, the NMB-P, the main part of the NMB-P calls, have traditionally been quite diverse. So we have everything from nanotechnology to materials for different applications and so forth. And that continues also to this work program. We have advanced materials and nanotechnologies for process industries and high added value products. So, and these, have a look at the topics here. Usually they are all research and innovation actions, and they lie a bit more towards the lower end of the technology readiness levels. So there's a bit more research emphasis than the innovation actions. There's also a green vehicles PPP, NMB-P8. I think that one is a 1-stage call. The other 3 are 2-stage calls. So please be also aware of that what I've talked about for the contractual PPPs, they are usually 1-stage calls. Here, when we come into the main calls here, they are 2-stage calls. For health, we have also 2 research and innovation actions, plus an Aranet co-fund. For energy applications, nanotechnologies and materials, advanced materials for energy applications, here there are both innovation actions towards high efficiency solar energy harvesting and advanced materials for storage technologies in the electricity grid. So even in the title, it's more, you get the idea that it's also a bit closer to market than the other. we have a bit more to Aeronet co-funds. Then we come into one of them are in Biotech. Here both the research and innovation actions targets also waste management and industrial type of technologies towards optimization of processes. There's also a coordination and support action for the Biotech. Modeling is always present in the work program, but we have a specific call for modeling of materials directed towards industrial technologies. Still, it's a research and innovation action. On top of that, we have a coordination support action. Then we have also a risk assessment and management of nanotechnologies, materials, and biotechnologies. And here, this risk assessment also lies in a larger scope of, in a policy context, where risk assessment and nanosafety is a key part. And then we have a couple of, or a bunch of more coordination and support actions that might be interested for you. We have a lot of pages. Some of them might be difficult or a bit hard to go through. However, we have this online work program where you can easily, through just flick through to your interest areas. We have the participant portal. It's been updated for Horizon 2020. On top of that, everything that you need to know about Horizon 2020 you will find through the participant portal. So if you want to start somewhere, the participant portal is the good point. You have the national contact points in your country. We have already met Katrin and Thomas. If for any reason you're not from Sweden, you can still find a list of all the national contact points in your home country. So please have a look at that. Please make use of the NCPs as well. They are the first line of information, and they can provide you with a lot of guidance on how to approach the proposals, and how to write them, and who to ask for more questions and so forth. I have a couple of more minutes, so this is not my last slide. I would like to just show you what we presented in mid of October in Brussels. We had an info day on some of the topics of the contractual PPPs, and these you can find online as well. But I would like to still go through one of these. These are the actual topics now that are running, where we explain them more in detail. So you can find this online as well in the key enabling technologies. You can find the videos that we had during the session, but also the slides. So I'm going to go through a couple of these slides, and I'm going to try to then show you how to read one of these or two of these call topics. So I'm going to thank you for your attention afterwards. FOF1, which targets additive and subtractive manufacturing machines. So the way here is to first read what is it a research and innovation action, or is it an innovation action? In this case, it's a research and innovation action. That means it's 100% funding for the direct costs for everyone. The TRL is between 4 and 6. That means that we expect to have a technology, or be presented a technology that is already validated in lab, and where you would like to take it into into a relevant, let's say, environment, and make in the end a demonstrator. And when you read the topic, first of all, you should read the background, but in the call scope, you will see keywords, and here I've highlighted some of these keywords for this particular topic. For all topics, you will be able to find that on the key enabling technologies part in online. So it targets this all-in-one machines in a single setup for processing and process control. So the topic clearly says that it's an all-in-one subtractive and additive manufacturing machine, all-in-one. So this is important. If you don't have that, then that will not be a very successful proposal. And you need to demonstrate full integration, full automation of these processes. You need to be able to produce parts. So perhaps for you who don't know, additive manufacturing is basically, let's say, 3D printing, where you add material on top on a profile rather than subtract by milling or cutting and so forth. So you need to be able to show these functional parts or products with the relevant industrially relevant accuracy and tolerances and material efficiency. And here, one of the keywords here is material efficiency. And this goes back to the circular economy, where one of the impacts, then I'll come back to that, will be to reduce the waste and the production cost. So in the expected impact here, you have quantitative targets that you should be able to show convincingly in your proposal. For instance, 20% reduction in time and cost, 15% increase in productivity for high volume additive manufacturing production. Then you need to show convincingly the reduction of inventory and workfloor space. And then we also have this, which you should not forget, is also the contribution to standardization and certification for these new type of machines as well. So this is a part of the commercialization that we're looking for as well. And here we also have, on one line in each of the topics, we have the indicative size of the project that we would expect. We would expect that a proposal between 3 and 5 million euros would be enough to be able to address these type of impacts. I still have a couple of minutes more, so I will just take another one, which is Spire 4 for industrial furnace design. And the specific objective here, so the background, you already find some keywords here. Please go through those keywords to understand what needs to be highlighted also in your proposal. Make sure that in the scope you have all these type of keywords inside, and that it makes sense to put them where you put them. So for instance, the design methods and the monitoring and control system of the emissions of then residue gases from the furnaces. And the proposals must include at least one demonstrator. So the demonstrator requirement comes back everywhere. You will need to be able to demonstrate either in a relevant environment or in an operational environment, depending on the level of technology readiness level. Again, quantitative impact as well, to reduce energy consumption, to reduce operating cost by a certain percentage. Please make that convincingly enough as well. So by that, I would like to thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I will try to answer them. You can, as Judith said, you can also post them in Swedish. I will answer in English, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Very interesting. I'm very glad to hear about an all-in-one machine. That sounds like a very good thing for lots of things to have an all-in-one. So we have microphones that my colleagues will help you with, but before that I would like to ask you a question. You have this line with the TRLs, sorry, and you said that if you're in the beginning of that line, you should look for pillar 1 more. Do you have what more in particular would you say that I would be looking for is if I'm active in this field as a researcher, but not so close to the application?
So let's say that your technology is much more emerging, much more new to the world, then you would probably need to look more at the calls in the excellence pillar. So we have, for instance, we have the European Research Council calls. We have, which are very bottom up. We have the Future and Emerging Technologies calls. We have which are called the FETs. And we have, for instance, the FET Opens. And they are, as they are called, they are very open. Any technology will work there. They are very highly competitive, but you're able to submit anything that is very new, very disruptive, and that would be interesting in those type of calls. We also have the FET Proactives, which are a bit more targeted towards a certain goal, but they are also in a very low technology readiness level. So they're the type of research that we're looking for is a bit different from this more industrially relevant type of research. Yes.
Do you have any questions from the audience? No? Then I take my second one. I guess apart from the SME instruments, most of these are collaborative projects, right? You need to be at least 3 partners. So if I would start to think about, forming, I have too small a head, forming a group to collaborate with, what should I be thinking about? How to design a good collaborative group?
Well, first you need to have an idea, and it might be that within your contact network that someone else has that same idea, and then you can join. You can join there. But the most important thing is that you have a certain interest that you want to pursue, and you join in a proposal, or you write a proposal that makes sense to what you would like to do. Then we try to be as little prescriptive as we can, but there will always be, as I just showed you, keywords that needs to be fulfilled. So then you need to consider and to be able to be flexible enough to address all these type of issues. But again, it needs to make sense, and it needs to make sense also to you as the proposer. So what do you need to think about? You should definitely use your NCPs. You should use your contact network that you already have. They might be able to help you. We also have these research associations for the contractual PPPs. They can also be a good way of introduce yourself. For instance, in Factors of the Future, the research association is called EFRA. You can always join. You can go on their website. It's efra.eu. You can join in there and also get into contact with people through there.
Thank you. So if there are not any further questions before the coffee break, I would just want to hand you a small gift. I think this is quite appropriate for your stay in Sweden for the next few hours. Thank you very much, Gustaf, for joining us.